what is Strada all about?
Strada is all about empowering creative control through AI technology.
This is a CineD Gear News video, supported by B&H and CVP.
Hi guys, I'm Johnny from CineD, and today I have a special guest. I'm here with Michael Cioni. Michael, how are you?
Really wonderful. Thanks for having me, Johnny.
You just came out with Strada, and we're going to talk about it in a second. But first, for those who never heard of you, tell me a little bit about you. Who are you?
Well, my name's Michael. I am a serial entrepreneur and filmmaker. I've moved to Los Angeles in 2001, and I sort of dropped out of college, and I just focused on workflow to use digital tools to make films. And I worked on more than 150 feature films, mostly a lot of big movies like Spider-Man and Pirates of the Caribbean and The Social Network and Underworld. And I really just loved trying to use digital tools to improve the way in which we work. And I love scaling that. And so I built a company called Plaster City. I built a company called Light Iron. I then was acquired by the company Panavision, and then I focused on production and cameras and lenses, and I made a camera called the DXL, which is what I'm shooting on here, and then moved to the cloud. And each time I see a new frontier for filmmakers, I want to be a part of the architecture of it. And at Frame.io, I helped develop the first sort of really easy camera to cloud shooting picture to the cloud system. And then Adobe acquired Frame.io, which was wonderful. And then I got this idea for AI and how AI can be used to create a better workflow. So I started Strada. So this is like the fourth startup I've been a part of. It's the third startup I've been the CEO of or started. And they're basically really just all the same mission, which is to help creative people make their products better and have better creative control through the use of technology.
We will talk about many of the things that you just mentioned, like AI and so, in a second. But you really one day decided to leave Frame.io and start a new business without really knowing what you want to do? Or this is just a legend?
No, that's true. Most of the times when I start businesses, all I have is a breadcrumb trail. And I have a vision of my objective, a goal, a desire. See, what's really important for entrepreneurs and filmmakers is we really need to focus on an end goal. And what's the problem is most people focus on the problems. And by focusing on the problems, you talk yourself out of doing anything, right? And a good creative innovator, whether that's for tech or art or music or anything, is you need to focus on your objective. And you kind of need to be a little naive about the problems because they can wear you down and you talk yourself out of it. So I focused on my objective, which I knew AI was going to become a big deal. And a lot of people were frustrated with AI in the creative space because of its association with replacing jobs or replacing creativity. And I didn't see it that way. I wasn't sure, but I said the only way I can figure this out is to be fully immersed in it. And I can't have obligations with other jobs or other supervisors or other obligations in order to discover it. So what I did know is I wanted to use AI to improve creative control. I didn't know how, and I didn't know the name of the company. I didn't know what we were going to do. I didn't even know what the core functionality would be. I just knew AI was the goal. And here's the funny thing, and I'm skipping ahead, but what we've released in Strada is not Strada. It's not what we aim to do. It's not our goal. Our goal is like way better, way bigger. But as we started to outline that goal and we discovered those problems I was talking about, we needed to start solving the problems first before we can get to that end objective. So what you're seeing today is really not even our vision for the company, but we have to start with some functionality to get it going. And over the next few years, you'll see the real product come to life.
And I have to say, for those who want to learn more how you got there and what you did and how you established the company, you have created a series of YouTube videos Those are very informative, and personally, I really recommend you guys to go and watch those. But one more thing which I'm really, I envy you. You actually established this company together with your brother and other family members. Is that kind of a family company?
I've started a business before with my brother, and my brother and I are very different. I am much more right-brained and much more innovative, and I like to be a presenter, and I like to draw these ideas out. And Peter is much more logical, and he's more left-brained, and he's more mathematical. And so what's worked for us is that we really don't step on each other's toes. A lot of times when siblings work together, it's dangerous or it could be difficult. For us, we are so different in our approach, our ideology, and our skill set that we really trust each other to do what needs to be done on each other's side of the fence. So I tend to act as the leader and the product developer and the motivator, and Pete works as the financial controller and the general manager. And then, so he worked at Netflix. After we sold our company to Panavision, I eventually went to Light Iron and he went to Netflix. And then when I was talking to him one day about all this AI stuff and I just thought that the headlines had it wrong. When the headlines were they were very dark, like this is bad, this is terrible. And then we had these strikes and people started striking. They were picketing, some people picketing against AI. To me, it just seemed like an opportunity to investigate. And I was actually surprised when Pete said, what if I quit my job? I didn't go to Pete and say, you should quit your job. In fact, I didn't even do that when we did it the first time because he worked at JP Morgan in New York more than 10 years ago when we started Light Iron. And he came to me both times. So I'm actually I like that story because I actually probably wouldn't have had the courage to start these businesses if I didn't have someone I trust implicitly on the financial side, because that's not my gift. I'm not very good at building the budgets and the projections required to figure out your runway. That's his skill. And so when he came to me, it was great. And then we have a cousin named Austin, and Austin worked with me. I brought him on at Frame.io several years ago, like in 2020. And then we worked together great. We built a lot of great tech together. And then when I left to start Strada, he joined us as well. So yes, it is a family affair. No, that wasn't the intention. And I don't think some people don't even know. They know Pete and I are related by our last name, but Austin, I don't think some people even know we're related. We certainly don't look it. Although we're all pretty short. There's something in our family. We have no gift for height, so everything lives on the lower shelves. And when we stand next to each other, we look like normal people. We stand next to everybody else. We're these little guys, but that's fun. That's okay.
Michael, we are very similar in some ways. We can always talk eye to each other. But anyway.
Yeah.
Let's move a bit forward and talk about Strada. And you said you're very much into workflow and you're very much into innovate here. What else can be done that hasn't been done before? I mean, we are loaded with tools. Everybody's doing something. There are editing systems and so on. So what is Strada all about?
As I mentioned, Strada is all about empowering creative control through AI technology. That's the foundation. Is we want to make people make content easier, and AI is going to help do that. But it's going to take phases because this has to be invented. We're not taking a technology that exists and applying it to the creative space. We have to create the technology itself and apply it to the creative space. So it's an enormous project, but we're moving very quickly. Now, it starts with being able to solve problems that everybody has. That's where we decided to start. And we think everybody has problems with transferring files and cloud storage in general. Most people can't afford to put a lot of files in the cloud. It's too expensive. And a lot of people have trouble with transcribing and translating. There's great translation and transcribing tools out there, but they only do that functionality. That's pretty much what they're focused on doing. And the ones that can do other things like editor systems that can transcribe, you have to be an editor to use them. That's a big problem for me. I think one of the biggest challenges that bothers me about editing tools is what happens in the editing tool manufacturing mind is in order for them to keep people using their tool, they just keep adding more and more features into it. Now that might sound good for the editor, but what the problem is, it makes the cutting room the only destination for all these tasks. And the more and more features you put into an editor, it means everyone on a production has to go to the cutting room to get that order filled. And that's too much pressure on a cutting room. And I think that's a bad way to build editing software. Those tools should focus more on the editing process and less on the sort of extra asset management that has to be done. So Strada helps alleviate the editor by making all these separate tasks that people need self-serve. You can just get it done yourself. If you want to make your own dailies, it makes them. If you want to sync your sound, it automatically syncs them. If you want a transcription or a translation, it does it for you. If you want to move files from cloud to cloud or a drive to cloud or cloud to drive, Strada does all that for you. And then if you want to convert the files from one format to the other or analyze them so you can search, all of those things are in a tool that's really easy to use. Like we're working really hard to make it so everyone can use it, and you don't need to be an expert in video formats or an NLE just to be able to get access to those things. We think that AI with analytics and automation and things like being able to like search for logos and then remove them or replace them with a new logo using generative AI to just change a logo on a shirt or something like that, or a billboard. That's the type of stuff that slows people down. It requires them to figure out a plan to deal with logos or deal with something in the shot that needs to be changed, and then you have to go to post-production to get it done. And we think we can do a lot of that automatically through our product.
So let's summarize this all into the 4 T's that you've been talking about.
To help people remember what we're doing, we call it the 4 T's. And we say it's transfer. So Strada can connect to third-party storage. You can connect to Dropbox. You can connect to Google Drive. You can connect to Frame.io. You can connect to Lightroom. We will soon add Box. So you can connect to third-party clouds. And then you can read off those clouds. So you don't have to buy new storage to use Strada. You can read off those clouds, but you can transfer between them. And cloud-to-cloud connection is 10 gigabytes per second. So if someone delivers you assets in Dropbox, but you work in Frame.io, you can move those files in Strada at 10 gigabytes per second. So you don't have to download them locally, which is what you do today, and then re-upload them. That's how people move files when they get deliverables. That's wrong. So we're fixing a lot of the transfer problems. So that's the first T. The second T is transcribe, which includes translate. We want to help people make it easy to transcribe and translate. A lot of tools like Premiere is great at transcribing, but it doesn't translate. And a lot of tools don't do translation correctly. Also, we support more than 100 languages. Tools like Premiere only support a dozen or so. And so it's a lot smaller range. We did an interview with an Armenian. Armenian isn't in the Premiere stock library of translation. You don't have that language. And so these are the things that we're trying to do. We're using multiple languages, AI language models to help do the translation correctly. And that's a big change for people. Plus, you can always see the video because it syncs the sound for you. So it makes it easier. You don't have to generate a new version just to transcribe or translate. And then the next one does not start with T. We made up a word. It's Tanalyze, which is analyze with the letter T. And that allows us to analyze a picture. And this is really exciting because filmmakers have never had analytics in their picture. So they don't really tag things. The only way we tag things is if we remember them, or we might take a few minutes to label a clip, but that's very uncommon. People generally do not label clips with object detection or emotions or locations or props or things like that. But Strada will do that for you. And we map our analytics to the timecode of the file. So now you could search by a word, but you can also now search by a prop or a line in a script or a location or an object like something that is a logo or something like that. And once you're able to do that, now you go into the NLE. We move those analytics into the NLE so you can search anything in your NLE and it'll just find those assets. For nonfiction, this is enormous. This is huge. Even for fiction, when you have lots of takes and lots of clips, this is going to be an accelerator, giving you more time to do the creative stuff so you're not spending time hunting and pecking for little assets that you can't find. And then the last one, it's Transcode, which is converting a file from one to the other. And so we're opening up more and more codecs to transcode them to different flavors.
Those features sounds very nice. So 2 quick questions here. First of all, who is it for? Big studios or independent creators? That's the first question. And the second is, can I use literally any camera in the market, or I have to choose something from a certain price or degree?
Well, the good news is we are really building Strada for a wide margin of people, but I'll tell you who we favor. We are not building Strada intentionally right now for enterprise level studios. And the reason is, while studios need the same tools we just talked about, they also require more security requirements. They have a higher threshold of security credentials that are needed. We've decided not to spend time building all those super security credentials that studios need, because we want to work with people who don't require them so that we can build faster. And so we don't want to have to slow down to build a specific type of security requirement like digital rights management or forensic watermarking, because most people in the mid-market don't require that to use a product. As long as it has, multi-factor authentication, then people are usually okay with that. So we're focusing on the mid-market today. Now, we will serve the studios eventually. We just need to scale the company up so that we can hire a security team and increase the size of our security team to do that. So we're focusing on people who are in the mid-market, and here's who we're really looking for. We are more of a business to consumer company. So what that means is we want to talk to the people who make the decisions and are also the users, right? A lot of times companies sell to somebody who makes the decision, but the decision maker isn't actually a user of the product. But we want to talk to people who are the users because they can make decisions for themselves and they know how to articulate what would make their lives better. And because this is so new, we want to make sure we're talking to the source of the users and we can get their feedback, capture it, and put it into the product. So that's really what we're focusing on.
Can you use any camera in order to use your tool, or it has to be from a certain price or level?
So in terms of cameras, today, any camera makes an RGB format. That works today. So an RGB format is a non-RAW format, like XAVC or H.264 or ProRes or DNX or H.265. Those are all RGB formats. So any camera that shoots any format like that, you can load into a cloud. Some clouds can't play those files back, but if you put that file in Strada, if you load that cloud in Strada, you can play it back. So we're really good at being able to do that. However, I will give you a preview. We are working on raw camera support. And I'll give you 2 things we haven't told anybody yet. One, we already have red code working, and that's a really big deal. You might think, oh, I've seen, tools can decode raw files like red cameras. What's the big deal? Those tools cannot do it in a web browser. Decoding raw files in a web browser is a completely different technology than doing it in a native application. And that's why there is essentially no tool that can decode and play back raw files in the browser. Very, very, very rare. So we are going to be supporting raw cameras over time. We already have red working in the lab. I've shot raw red files and been able to watch them play through the cloud. So that's great in Chrome, which is a big deal. And then the second thing we're going to be doing, and it's coming pretty soon, it's going well, is we are applying 3D LUTs in the cloud, in the browser. That's another thing. You'd be like, well, products use 3D LUTs all the time. What's the big deal? You can't apply a 3D LUT in Chrome. That's different. That's hard. It's a very different architecture. It's a very different technology, and that's why people don't do it. So we are allowing you to use a LUT library. You can build a LUT library of your own LUTs, or we provide a bunch of the normalized available LUTs. And then you can have a file in Strada in a browser and you can add a LUT to it. So you can put log files in Strada. And if you think about that for a second, that means you could take, let's say, XAVC files out of a Sony, Cine Alta camera, like an FS7. You could take XAVC files, just put them right in Dropbox. And then in Strada, that log file can be synced, and it can be LUTed, and it can be transcribed and transcoded and tanalyzed, all without having to render anything. And it's coming, and you can watch it play back, and it looks correct, and it sounds correct, and there was no rendering yet. And then if you want to render it, you can export it as a different file. It might sound like, don't we already have that? Trust me, we don't already have that. Because if we did, one, I would have bought it already, and two, I wouldn't have needed to make it myself. We are not building a better mousetrap. We are building a technology in workflow that just hasn't been done, and we're completely virtualizing it. That's what's different. By working in the cloud and working in web browsers, it's a lot harder because web browsers are far more limiting than an app. When you can get a web browser to act like an app, that's what people really want, because they want the power of an app, but they want the flexibility and mobility of a web browser. A lot of people tell me, all of your features are available in Resolve. Tell me how you use Resolve on a plane. Show me how that works. Tell me how a producer can use all these amazing tools in Resolve. Resolve's a great product, but how do you use those tools when you're traveling or when you're on set? It doesn't work that way because it's a native application. Native applications, even the best ones, and I certainly have many of them, they are fundamentally flawed because they require an operating system to run on, which requires a computer, and it requires you to have a license that's specific to that device, and they're really, really big and heavy. They use a lot of RAM. You need a faster computer to make them performant, and they're not flexible. You can't just watch a file on one computer and then finish watching it on another device. It doesn't work that way, but the cloud does. And so that's why what we're trying to do is bring people the power of native apps with the flexibility and control of cloud apps.
Michael, so you're describing a lot of very nice features, really features that I would have loved to have and implement in my workflow without actually making the editing room too crowded. How about the cost? Because it sounds that having something like you're describing is a very expensive thing. Am I wrong?
It's a great question. And I really want to dive into the cost here. And here's how I'm going to answer it. First of all, we don't have pricing yet. We are so focused on building it, we can't actually determine the cost yet because we don't know how much it costs to do all this. When you're building all of this system fully virtual in the cloud, you really don't know how much things will cost until you have lots of people using it. There are these models to sort of give you an idea of how much the compute will cost, but it's really hard to get it accurate. So we are unable to fully know that. That's the truth. And so as we get more people in the beta, we'll start to be able to discern how much will this cost. However, I want to start out by saying I think cloud is too expensive, and I know that people cannot afford most clouds. In fact, it is very rare for people to put raw files in the cloud, mainly because, one, they don't have the bandwidth to do it, and if they do, they don't have the financial resources to pay for all that cloud storage of raw files over and over and over, month after month. I get that. This is why, even though everyone listening has cloud storage, everyone listening, you have a cloud, probably 2 or 3 cloud subscriptions going on, but I know you also have a bigger investment in local hard drives. You have RAIDs, you have big hard drives, small hard drives, you have them stacked together, daisy chained together, you have a closet of old ones you're not using. That's how you're working. You're working off local storage and you use cloud for little pieces. I understand that. And that's why at Strada, we are not going to require you to buy our storage in order to use it. In fact, if you have existing storage, we talked about this, you can use that and you can use Strada with existing storage for free. But if you want to use raw files, what we're going to allow you to do in the future is connect your hard drives to Strada so that your investment in a RAID or a NAS or even a SAN can be connected into Strada. And then think about it. What is a cloud? A cloud is a set of hard drives connected to the internet that can be accessed off-site. That's what a cloud is. Turn your own drive into a cloud. If you have a RAID and you connect it to Strada on your computer, your collaborators can now go into your RAID as if it's a cloud and pull files off of it or watch files that are on your RAID. That's what a cloud is. And so we're giving people the power of cloud, but they can control it. If you do it that way, then there's no cost to storing your media and sharing your media that way because you're just reading it off of your drive and sharing it. Now, the downside is your internet becomes the threshold or the limitation of how fast they can pull files off. But if you're smart about that, or you manage that correctly, you don't have to move all your assets to a cloud just to share them. That's a major differentiator for our product. And it's because we really want to recognize how people are working and what their pain tolerances are and what their challenges are. I understand it. I have the same problem. My internet here in LA has, here's a fun fact for the listeners. Los Angeles, California has the largest amount of people on the internet per square mile or per square kilometer on Earth. There's more internet accounts here. And the reason for that is there are cities that have more people than Los Angeles, not many, but a few. But many of those cities are very vertical. There's like buildings with lots and lots of apartments, hundreds and hundreds, or sometimes 1,000 apartments in a building. In LA, because of earthquakes, most of our buildings are 1 or 2 stories. To see a 4-story building in LA is tall, which sounds weird to the rest of the world. And that means everybody lives in an independent spot. That actually is bad for the internet here because there's more internet hookups per every address as opposed to running it to a building and serving 1,000 people. Here, 1,000 people is 1,000 unique hookups. That's a problem. So our internet in LA might surprise you. It's actually statistically slow. We do not have good internet here, and it's troubling for us, but it's just the way it works. So what happens is I have a hard time putting files in the cloud, even if I can afford cloud storage. So I have these big RAIDs. I have these big GTEX and OWC RAIDs that hold all my footage. And what I want to be able to do is share that with my collaborators wherever they are. And Strada is going to allow me to turn my own drive into my own self-serve cloud. And that's going to reduce prices for people. It's going to be very, very, very affordable because you're using a drive you already own and you're connecting it to people without having to pay for cloud storage. And the last thing about the price I want to say is we pledge to not charge per user. I don't want to charge per user. I don't like companies that charge per user. Most of you are paying per user. And the reason that bothers me is because I think the whole idea of working as a team is about collaboration. You can't make something by yourself. And I think it's unfair to penalize people to use a product by adding an entire seat. And one of the reasons that's unfair is because when you have to add a collaborator in, let's say, an Adobe tool, you have to buy a whole new license. And that a license requires you to pay for the entire app or the entire suite of apps. But I'm pretty sure I know this. Even though I don't know you all watching, you don't use all those apps. You only use a fraction of them. And of the ones you don't use the entire tool. You only use a fraction of the tool, but you have to pay for either the whole tool or the whole suite of tools. This is not how people are going to want to consume products in the future. In the 2030s, you want to pay for exactly what you want. People know this when we had cable TV. People did not like the idea that they had to buy 500 channels when they only wanted 10. And that makes it feel bad for the consumer. I don't want to be like that. So we're allowing you to have unlimited users, and then those users can pay for the parts of the app that they use, and we're not charging for users to have to use the whole app, whether they use it or not. So that's a really big differentiator in our billing plans.
You mentioned beta testing. So let's presume that some of those who heard us now are really, they think that's the perfect tool for them. How can they experience this? How can they experience the workflow that you are offering or describing here?
So if you want to be on the beta, You need to first sign up for the product at strada.tech. Once you sign up for the product, you'll get an email from us. Then you're going to want to sign up for the beta, which you have to do on your own, and you email beta@strada.tech. By reaching out on your own to beta@strada.tech, it shows us that that you're serious about participating in a beta. And then we are slowly rolling the beta out in a wait list to people that signed up for it. We expect over the next 10 weeks, so this is the first week of February right now, over the next 10 weeks, we will be getting everyone on that wait list on the beta. That's our goal. And then in the springtime, we will then open up the beta to the public, and there won't be a wait list later in the spring. Hopefully 10 or 12 weeks from now, there'll be no wait list. That's an objective. That's a goal. We don't know if we can achieve that goal, but that we set goals and we try to achieve them. So that is the way to go about getting Strada in your workflow.
Any geo limitations, or it's an international thing? Anybody from anywhere can register?
Anybody can register. We're starting in the United States for the first people on the beta because we can talk to them on the same time zone. So we want to deal with people's problems, and I don't want to be asleep when that happens. So everyone should sign up to get on that wait list. And then as we scale out the wait list, it doesn't matter where you are. We will just, we'll be moving further and further. Because as the product gets more and more robust, we should be able to address people's problems, in the daytime when they're asleep. So we'll do our best to make that work. We're still a startup. It's still very new. But we have people who are understanding of what being on a beta means. And another way to say that is they understand that this is very fresh and different and new, but they like that. And so they're being very smart about how to deploy it in their world.
Great. Michael, anything that I missed or anything that you would like to elaborate a little bit more? I think we got the overall picture and it sounds very promising, but anything that I forgot?
Well, I just want to say that it's great to speak to you always. You're always at all the trade shows. So all I would say is let's get together at NAB. And it's February right now. And this is when people start to think about, should I go to NAB? Yes. And here's why. Because a year ago, there was very little AI at NAB. 5 years from now, it's going to be in every single booth. You should go to NAB because you can get an advantage by learning about it and seeing all the tools out there. And since there's so many new tools with AI, this is a way for you to go do that. So what I recommend is, if you think about it, when digital cameras came out, everyone went to NAB because they could get an advantage of learning all the tech early. And that helped them position themselves to succeed after the cameras became more prevalent and more available. AI is going to be the same. Go to NAB, start learning about it, start meeting the new people, start figuring out how you can apply it into your world, give yourself an advantage. And I promise over the next 3, 4, 5 years, that investment in being with the manufacturers and the community will certainly pay off.
Okay, Michael, it's February now. See you in April on the show floor.
And we'll see everybody listening too.
Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Johnny.
Guys, thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.